We are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here live each and every Monday night on the Cover One YouTube channel or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. This is the third Cover One Roundup that has ever been broadcasted after a Kansas City Chiefs game. And I can officially say the Bills have like a 66% winning percentage against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Good job, Kyle, getting that nice 2-3. Yeah, there you
go. Since the Cover One Roundup launched, unfortunately, the one loss was the one that matters. But whatever, you know what? We're stacking dubs against the Kansas City Chiefs now because the Buffalo Bills yesterday defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. Wasn't a pretty game, but you know what? The result was really pretty. A wonderful 24-20 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. And my co-host, David Fox, and I momentarily here will get into our takeaways from that game, what went right, what went wrong, and all that good stuff that you've come to expect from us here on the Cover One Roundup. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you will, David, what's going on?
I definitely almost passed out after that Taron Johnson interception because I was screaming and fist pumping a lot at the bar I was at. I guess in that time that I was screaming and fist pumping, I forgot to breathe during that.
As one does.
So kind of just like fell backwards into my bench and was like, oh no, I'm gonna pass out.
It happens, man.
But I didn't. It was close. But
yeah, I often almost pass out when I see Taron Johnson, to be fair. But like, yeah, it was an incredible win. I think that's all. That's all we have to say. All right, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week. But no, just I don't even know what to say because there's so many things that can be said about this game. Like the Bills themselves aren't saying that much, right? They're just saying like, oh, it was a big win because it was the one that it was the game that we played yesterday, so it was the biggest game. But like this is a game that everyone in Bills Mafia, everyone in Bills world has circled on the calendar since last year, since this last divisional round matchup last year, where the Bills, of course, lose in a heartbreaking fashion. And, of course, you have to go back to Arrowhead because nobody knows how the NFL schedule works, really. Like, even the people that make it, they just kind of press the randomize button, and they're like, yeah, that looks right to me.
And that's how you get the Ravens playing the entire AFC East for their first 4 weeks. And you get the freaking Colts who are playing, like, 5 out of their first 6 or 7 games within their own division.
It doesn't make sense. The Bills, they play, well, just obviously there's some method to the madness, right? Where like they've played each other because just of how they've ranked in their respective divisions, the Bills and Chiefs, of course. And then next year, the Bills just play the AFC West. So that's how they play. But how it's been at Arrowhead the last 2 years and how it's going to be at Arrowhead again next year, I have no idea. I don't understand how they figure this out. But hopefully there's going to be a game with Kansas City before then, and it will be in Buffalo, assuming things don't collapse. Or actually, hopefully the Bills just don't play the Chiefs again, right? Is that a hot take? I don't particularly want to see the Chiefs again. That would be a hot take. I do not want to see them again. I'm sorry, but
I don't want to either, but it's gonna happen.
It's going to happen, right? No, I think Victoria tweeted earlier, friend of the show, Victoria, just like, no, I think the Jets will upset the Chiefs in the playoffs. And it's like, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that one. Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh, they got something going on over there. But before we get deeper into the podcast here and talk about our takes, this show and Cover One in general are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. David, can you tell us just a little bit or as much as you want about Underdog?
No, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm obligated to do so. God, that sounded
great
awful.
Ad read.
Sorry, so awful. I apologize to Underdog Fantasy because you paid me. But Cover One is excited to once again partner with the most dynamic name in fantasy football, Underdog Fantasy. If that one home league that you're in isn't enough each year for you, then Underdog Fantasy is for you. It's all the fun of drafting your own players, but without the waivers and lineup decisions. Best ball drafts allow you to have all the fun of drafting your team, all the chances to win big with none of the week-to-week hassle. If you use promo code COVER1 when signing up, you get to make your first deposit, and Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That is $100 in free play if you use promo code COVER1. Even better, Underdog's Best Ball Mania 3 contest is going to make 3 players millionaires. $10 million in total prizes, $2 million to the first, $1 million to the second, and $1 million bonus to the team with the most regular season points. That's 3 chances to win at least $1 million. Sign up now using promo code COVER1, that's the number 1, and take your chance at $1 million today with Underdog Fantasy.
Again, that is promo code COVER1. And while you're on the internet and you got your wallet out, presumably because you're going to use promo code COVER1 to have your initial deposit up to $100 matched, you should check out Cover1 One Pass. What is Cover1 One Pass? Great question. It is Cover1's subscription service, if you will. Exclusive members-only content, in-depth analysis, including scheme, play, and player breakdowns. It's all there on the screen if you're watching this live. If you're not, you're listening to me just read a graphic. But yes, a bunch of great written content over there on the website. Always good stuff coming out. I know that we're putting out a few unlocked articles this week just to give you a little glimpse into the type of content that those insiders get on a week-to-week basis. I know Greg's got an in-depth stat piece coming out tomorrow that you might want to check out when that drops again tomorrow morning. Rob's been putting out good stuff. Our whole writing staff, if you will. David, your breakdowns, your game, they're called recaps, right? That's the word that I'm looking for.
There you go.
Those are typically free. But again, I'm speaking to the quality of our writing staff, always putting out great stuff over there. And then again, you also have access to the Cover1 Premium Slack where you can discuss, live Bills games with a great community, and then just a bunch of just life talk, if you will. Again, that's Cover1 One Pass. Become an insider today, $57 per year. Incredible value. All right, David, let's get into it. Okay, let's just get into the takeaways. I've been waiting to talk about this football game for roughly 24 hours at this point. Right? I've talked about it with no one. You might not believe me, right? But after the game happened, I actually took a vow of silence, and this is the first time I'm speaking in 24 hours, so I can give my fantastic NFL and Buffalo Bills takes right to the people here on the Cover1 Roundup. You're getting them here first. You're getting them fresh. All right. So my first takeaway from this game is that Von Miller was signed not for this particular moment, I guess. It was more so for the playoffs, assuming that the Bills get there. They're going to. But he was signed for moments like these, right? These big games. You need a big-time player to make big-time plays in big moments in big games. And boy, did he deliver yesterday. Von Miller, worth every penny that the people are saying that the Bills overpaid for him. Great analysis from people in hindsight. But anyway, yesterday, Von Miller notching 4 tackles, 2 sacks, played on a season-high 52 snaps and had 42 rushes, 9 total pressures. Okay, so he got a pressure on over 20% of his pass rushes yesterday, a 25% win percentage, pass rush win percentage, according to PFF. Also, one thing that I feel like people don't really bring up about Von Miller when talking about Von Miller is how good he is as a run defender, David.
Yeah.
He had 4 run stops yesterday on 10 snaps in run defense.
Yeah.
So, on 40%, he was just like, I'm going to make a play on this. Crazy. Very good player. But again, the Bills, they did sign him to be a run defender, right, to an extent. But what they mostly signed him for was, like I said, that pass rushing upside, to be the closer, as everyone has said. That is one thing that the Bills have struggled to do specifically against Kansas City in recent years, but largely just in general, is they haven't had that closer, if you will. They haven't had the finisher. They haven't had the guy that actually takes opposing quarterbacks to the ground, to the turf. They've had pressure guys, right? They've had guys who can consistently get pressure. Jerry Hughes, great pressure guy. Mario Addison wasn't wasn't adverse to the idea of getting pressure from time to time. He wasn't bad. But again, they just never had the guy who could actually finish plays. That's why they spend a ton of money to bring in Von Miller, in specifically for games like yesterday. And again, like I said, 9 pressures, 2 sacks against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And we just talk about big plays, right? They bring in a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball to make these big plays. And that's exactly what Miller does yesterday. I've wrote down 3 plays here that just kind of, to an extent, changed the course of the game. He had a second quarter sack on second down, and then that set up a 3rd and 19. Yep. Chiefs don't convert, obviously. They punt, and then that sparks the Bills' 1 minute and 13 second, 90 whatever yard drive to
98 yards for a touchdown.
Didn't necessarily end the half. I will get into that later. But the Bills score a touchdown going into halftime there. And again, that is sparked by Von Miller getting a sack there at the end of the second quarter. And then 4th quarter, sack on 3rd down. Buffalo gets the ball back. That sets up the game-winning drive. Again, and Von Miller, what I love about Von Miller is when he makes a sack, just like, not necessarily in garbage time, but like a less meaningful sack. He'll kind of like dance around and do his, he's a charismatic guy. He'll dance around. But then when he gets a sack and the Bills are losing, he just gets up and runs to the sideline like, I can't be bothered. I have to.
That's right.
Like, I just did an insane thing, but I don't care. Offense, get out here. I want to, I'll celebrate later. Love that. And then also, perhaps the biggest play of the game. Everyone has broken this down. I think Ben Solak, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Ben Solak.
It's a very easy name to pronounce. I just wanted to make sure. But I think he broke it down best on Twitter yesterday, and then all the talking heads on the media, or on the football shows today, just kind of did a less good job in their own words. But Solak did it really well on Twitter yesterday, breaking down the game-clinching interception there. And again, go watch his video. He did a very good breakdown. But just kind of to sum up what he said, Miller throughout the entire game had been doing outside pass rush moves against the Chiefs. And then on the final Kansas City offensive play, a designed cut inside, a designed inside move from Von Miller, which forces Mahomes off his spot. He runs kind of into the path of a spying Matt Milano, who engages once Mahomes breaks the pocket. And then that, again, forces Mahomes to make a ill-advised throw, doesn't see Taron Johnson, throws it to Taron Johnson, who called game. And again, that is sparked by Von Miller getting pressure. And again, he also gets a hand on Mahomes on that play. So just an incredible game from Von Miller in the game that he really was signed for, if you will. You can make the argument that, no, he was actually signed for the playoffs. That's when the Bills are going to need him to do this consistently. But, I mean, through 6 games, he has been a very good pass rusher consistently, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. And it is just crazy because you said on Twitter earlier, David, like, he's 33 years old. Like, this isn't something, this is kind of abnormal for 33-year-old pass rushers to be as consistent and as dominant as Von Miller is. And he's putting up these crazy numbers in a rotation. He's only playing on like 60% of the team's defensive snaps, which is what everyone expected him to be doing, right? But I don't think we even expected him to be as dominant as he has been throughout these first 5-6 games. Again, people questioned just the investment that the Bills made in him in the offseason, right? The commitment of a 6-year, however many $1 million deal to a 33-year-old aging pass rusher, questioning if he still has anything left in the tank. But again, he's been worth every penny that the Bills have committed to pay him thus far. Obviously, am I going to feel the same way in 3 years? I don't know. Maybe he takes a step back, but as of right now, I'm completely fine with the contract. And again, like I said, this is the moment he was signed for, and he delivers. So, David, Von Miller, how do you feel?
Pretty freaking great.
Pretty good.
When you are brought in to be sort of a finishing piece to a roster that's already very, very good, was the number 1 defense in football last year, and then you add Von Miller with the expectation that in games like this, where you need an elite pass rusher, you need a finisher, he's got to show up. And He did. Like it was exactly what every Bills fan wanted to see out of Von Miller. I mean, there was someone. I mean, you talk about the final play. You talk about the sack that set up 3rd and 19. There was someone here who mentioned another great play that I'm going to look for. Oh my god, I can't possibly be. There's not that many comments.
Is it that Vaughn is on pace for 17 sacks?
I mean, that is also true. He has 6 sacks through 6 games, and that is pretty great. Here we go. Sespinar says it also doesn't go in the stats as a sack, but that tackle on Mahomes after scrambling for like a year. Yeah, because he was. It was at least like 15 seconds that play.
Yeah, and there was no holding on that play either.
No, not at all. Not for a single second.
That was incredible.
But I mean, they were still using Milano as a spy on that play, and that was like 3rd and 13 or something like that. I don't know. But I mean, Mahomes managed to like juke out the defenders that were in front of him. They didn't have the angle. If Miller was not chasing him from behind, that's a first down. I mean, you could see all the green grass in front of him. That's a first down. And not only does he get Mahomes on that play, he's doing it while Milano like basically cuts his legs off from under him accidentally. He's like reaching and diving for Mahomes and just gets enough of his ankles to trip him up and bring him down before he scrambles for a first down. Last year, that's Jerry Hughes, and that's not happening.
No.
And we love Jerry Hughes. We have been big Jerry Hughes. I do. Shut up, Kyle.
I'm not anti-Jerry Hughes whatsoever.
You sure sound anti-Jerry Hughes.
David, I don't know if you remember this. I think you were on the show at this time, but like I remember we did this is off topic, but we did like a podcast before the offseason, and I just like offhand mentioned like, oh yeah, the Bills will re-sign Jerry Hughes. Yeah. And the comments were just like, no, they won't. He's bad now. And I was like, what? Like, wait, do we not like Jerry Hughes? What's going on?
I remember this.
I was wrong, obviously. Well, look, if the Bills don't get Von Miller, I'm sure Jerry Hughes is back, to be honest. But
yeah,
all right,
but Jerry Hughes is not doing what Von Miller did yesterday. And and to be clear, nobody who has been a supporter of Jerry Hughes in the last couple of years on the Buffalo Bills has ever compared Jerry Hughes to Von Miller in that sense. Like Von Miller is in a class of his own, and that was very, very apparent yesterday. And it's pretty cool to have someone like that on your team finishing games against Patrick Mahomes.
How do we feel about the usage of the nickname the closer?
Do you not like it?
I don't.
I think it's a little. I think it's overused at this point.
Yeah, it caught on really quick.
It did. But whatever.
It's not a bad nickname. I just, I
honestly, I just don't like that. I just don't like that it reminds me of baseball because baseball is boring.
Wow. Yeah, they have to play Enter Sandman every time the closer enters the field now. Or no, what's the Mets guy? You just said you don't like baseball. Now I'm asking you baseball questions. No, the Mets have a closer and they play a fun song whenever he comes on the field. So they have to start doing that for Von Miller now. People are talking about pass rushers and aging in the chat. RJ writes, Reggie White and Bruce Smith were productive after 33. Actually, elite pass rush ages pretty well historically. I can't speak theory.
Okay, hold on. Like, you're comparing the number 1 and number 2 sack leaders of all time. Like, there's like elite pass rushers, and then there's like the rarest of specimens. Like Reggie White and Bruce Smith were the rarest.
I would put, I you know what? I'm siding with RJ. I'm siding with RJ here, David. I'm taking a stand. He put the caveat elite pass rush.
I understand that.
Von Miller's in that category. Von Miller's in the category.
I agree with that. But like, it's hard to project that initially when he signs that contract. I mean,
that is true.
For me, I would have been happy if Von Miller had like 9, maybe scratching 10 sacks, right? I would have felt like, okay, yeah, that works. That's what you want. I mean, we're looking at like 13, 14? Am I crazy? Like that's nuts. That's actually crazy. And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing when comparing Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Jared Allen, Julius Peppers, as he brings up. I don't think any of those guys, and I could be misremembering. Please yell at me if I'm wrong. But I don't think any of those guys had a torn ACL like a year or two before they turned 33. Von Miller did. I mean, and I understand that, like, you know, back then a torn ACL would have meant a lot more than it does now, where you can recover a lot more easily. But a torn ACL is still a torn ACL, and different athletes still heal differently. Different people are different people. Like, that's sort of what's crazy about this, right? Is like you could tell in 2021 that Von Miller was still, like, at the beginning of the year, was still like coming back, still trying to get used to everything. Got traded to the Rams. By the time the playoffs rolled around, he was in form. He was ready to go, and that's sort of what you were hoping to carry into 2022 when you sign him to the Buffalo Bills. But you can't guarantee that. You don't know what's actually going to happen. And of course, you can say that about anyone. I understand that. Maybe I'm just being unnecessarily contrarian for no reason. But I just think that, to me, this is exceeding expectations of what I had for Von Miller, for which I'm very, very grateful for, because he's awesome.
And as Steve writes in chat, it's a way different game today than it was
also true.
Back in the day, given the mobility of quarterbacks. And I also, like, I could just be wrong, but I'm just kind of, I guess, anecdotally thinking about conversations I've had with people. And maybe I'm too broadly applying it to, you know, general thoughts. But, like, I think that some people forgot that Von Miller is the guy, right? Like, he's the active NFL sack leader. But, like, I feel like some people saw how he kind of started last year in Denver, like you said, David, not bad, but maybe not Von Miller. And then he goes and he's part of obviously they have a lot of good pass rushers in LA, but he was one of a lot of good pass rushers in LA last year, right? Aaron Donald got the shine, and then it was Von Miller. It was Aaron Donald plus, you know, whoever else was there. Von Miller was not the marquee pass rusher in LA. He was one of several. So I think that's what a lot of people were questioning. Is it okay to pay a 33-year-old Von Miller a 6-year contract and still expect him to be the guy? And
3-ish year contract, but yes.
Right, yes. Well, yes. But on paper, 6 years. But
right.
We'll see. Again, we'll see how we feel in 3 years or in 6 years, because Von Miller has said that he expects to be here the full 6 years. Is he going to be? I don't know. Maybe as an assistant GM in 6 years, because he's on his tour right now talking about how he wants to be a GM and he loves Brandon Beane.
Yeah.
So that's how that's going to progress. I'm telling you right now. But no, like but regardless, I just stuttered over all my words. I don't regret anything thus far. I think it's been a very, very good contract. They've gotten exactly what they've wanted out of Von Miller. So, David, what's your first takeaway?
My first takeaway is very related to Von Miller, but not entirely. Leslie Frazier is a genius and should be a head coach in 2023. There were some people, and I'll get into it a little bit later. I'll get more into it later. But there were some upset people around halftime of this game yesterday.
Rightfully so.
Were they, though? Were they?
I'll let you continue, and then I'll rebuke, if that's a word.
And it's just, so in this game, you give up 20 points to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I understand Tyreek Hill is no longer there. I get it. And I understand that this Chiefs offense, has not been quite the unstoppable juggernaut, or at least not the consistently unstoppable juggernaut that they have been in the past. But against the Bucs, they annihilated them. Against the Raiders, they got off to a very slow start and scored 38 points, right, in that game? Something like that. And You come into this game, you are in Kansas City, by the way, a notoriously very difficult, hostile environment for any road team to play in. And you hold them to 20 points, 10 in the first half, 10 in the second half. That is just insane. That's crazy. That is that and you're doing it, by the way, with a couple of rookie corners, a 7th-round pick from a couple of years ago, a 6th-round pick from a few years ago playing safety, and a badly bruised, contused Jordan Poyer who couldn't even fly on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, that's insane. I don't know how else to describe what Leslie Frazier did outside of just pure genius and exactly what the NFL wishes they could do week in and week out. And I understand that there's a lot of talent on this Bills defense, and that certainly plays into it. But Leslie Frazier made adjustments at halftime that paid off. I mean, using like that play where Taron Johnson makes the game-ending interception. They, like you said, bring Von Miller on an inside move to flush Mahomes out of the pocket so that they could have pressure coming from multiple sides, essentially pinching in on Mahomes with Milano as the spy in front of him and Miller coming in from behind. And Mahomes felt that pressure and had to make an off-platform throw and, threw an interception to a receiver that just couldn't quite get there. And that adjustment of using more 3-man rushes, using Milano as a spy, was so critical. And it's something that really I think the Bengals and Lou Anarumo used quite a bit in that AFC Championship game last year to great success because it really flustered the Chiefs in the second half of that game. But to actually implement that at halftime and to make it work the way they did, that's good stuff. That's just what you want. And the Chiefs still managed to do quite a bit on offense, as much as they could. But, I mean, it wasn't easy for them, even if it felt like Travis Kelce was catching, 1,000 passes for 1,200 yards or whatever it was. I think he finished with 7 or 8 catches for 130-something yards, something like that.
I do not have the stats in front of me. I'll get them up here, but
yeah.
I mean, no teams stop Travis Kelce, even
and
very good teams against tight ends like the Bills.
Yeah, and that sort of thing is I think lost in the whole they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore conversation was yeah, but they still have Travis Kelce, who is the best tight end in the NFL. Come on now. And as a lot of people have been saying throughout the year, Travis Kelce, this might end up being the best he's ever played, which is saying something.
Right.
And it's a little frightening to think about. Travis Kelce had 8 catches on 10 targets for 108 yards and no touchdowns, actually, which is ironic because that Monday night game he had 4 touchdowns on 6 catches and 25 yards.
He's really good. But
He's
again,
really good.
And again, this was the type of thing where the Bills, I mean, we talked about it 2 weeks ago with Mark Andrews. They limited Mark Andrews to 2 receptions. And this is a defense that consistently does well in limiting tight ends, but Travis Kelce is a different animal. He's a different beast. Yeah. And you just don't, you go into the game. He's kind of like the Mahomes of tight ends where you go into the game hoping to limit him. You're not shutting Travis Kelce down. You just hope that you can kind of limit what he does. The Bills this game, I guess, really did they limit what Travis Kelce could do? I guess they keep him out of the end zone. Keep him out of the end zone. And again, they largely do limit Mahomes. Again, as much as you can limit a guy like Patrick Mahomes, 25 completions out of 40 attempts, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But I do want to talk about Leslie Frazier because, like you said, David, the adjustments at halftime, the I guess decision to put Matt Milano as the spy, which I'll get into Matt Milano later. Dude is just having a year, but don't tell that to PFF. I was looking, so I go to PFF after while I'm doing my prep here
because you hate yourself.
Right. I don't go for the grades, obviously.
Mm.
I go for because they do actually do a very good job of keeping or I guess supplying stats that you can't get really anywhere else, like pass rush win rate, or number of pressures, or a number of times the guy was targeted, all that's stuff like that. But it's the grades themselves that I don't really find that that useful.
Yeah.
And they graded Matt Milano very poorly in this game. But that's besides the point. We'll get into Matt Milano here momentarily. But I do want to talk about Leslie Frazier, because you said earlier that he should be a head coach moving forward. I still don't, or not moving forward, next year, obviously, he should get a job. I still wouldn't put money on it. I still don't necessarily think.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it should happen. It should have happened last year, for being honest. But
it should. There's numerous years in which it should have happened by now. But I will say, though, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, or the Bills even get to the Super Bowl, I think he has a good of chance as he'll ever have. Right? It'll be his best chance yet. Because look, in a league that I think we've had this conversation 100 times on this podcast before, David, but owners want sexy hires. Owners want hires that will sell tickets. And this
until they don't, and then they go with a retread.
Well, but this is a league that is skewing young and offensive, and if you can't find a coach that can, that checks both boxes, you try to get a coach that checks one of them, right? Nathaniel Hackett, not necessarily young, but offensive minded, and Aaron Rodgers, blah blah blah. Yeah. And Dan Campbell, offensive, and both use both. But Matt Eberflus kind of. How did Matt Eberflus get a job?
Hey, listen, that Bears team should be way worse than they actually are this year.
I'm not saying he's a bad coach. It's interesting. But yeah, he kind of doesn't fit the mold. But I will say that Leslie Frazier's not really a sexy hire, right? If you're a fan of a desperate football team, or you just want something fresh. I don't know if the 63-year-old defensive-minded head coach who plays 4-3 soft coverage defense, historically that's how it would be, I guess, marketed, or at least talked about by these anti-Leslie Frazier haters, if you will. That's not really the sexiest hire. But if you get Leslie Frazier coming off a Super Bowl victory, right? You get the defensive coordinator who just did that, who has had the number one defense for how many years in a row now. You could market that. You could really, you could, I guess, sell that to your fans, and he would succeed.
And the other thing is, was Sean McDermott the sexy hire for the Bills when that happened? Not really.
He was young, though. They marketed the young thing, and he wasn't a retread.
I guess, and I get that, but it was still the tail end of the Rivera era in Carolina.
It was,
and that wasn't looking great at that point. They were still a solid team, but they weren't looking great. And I don't know. It just sort of seemed like a very safe choice after the absolute clown show that is Rex Ryan, which is what it tends to be. And this is what NFL owners really like to do, right? Is they have a bad experience with one coach and they fire him, and then they say, I want the total opposite of that.
You're right.
I want the opposite of that. The opposite of Rex Ryan was Sean McDermott. Not because Sean McDermott was an offensive guy, but because he was just very calm, very process oriented, had great leadership and an actual plan. None of the things that Rex Ryan actually had. But so that's why I look at Carolina right now, which would be hilarious, right? If the Carolina Panthers hired Leslie Frazier. But that's sort of what they need, right? Is somebody who has NFL experience,
an adult in the room,
done this before, an adult in the room, so to speak. And just somebody who's going to bring a level of stability to a franchise that is beyond floundering at this point. That is rough going what's happening in Carolina. But regardless of that, that's sort of what I feel. That's why I feel more confident in Leslie Frazier maybe getting a head coaching job. I don't know. It's still more than possible where it doesn't happen, but
Which
he should have
I
gotten
want him to get a
the Bears
job.
job last year. Should have gotten the
Mhm.
Texans job after that. Didn't get either, and honestly, it's their loss.
Right. He more than deserves another shot, and I think he would do well given another shot. But
Yeah.
selfishly, if I'm cool with Leslie Frazier sticking around for however
Oh,
long
I
he
am
wants to
too.
stick around
I
and
mean, it
be
was
the
the same thing
defensive
with
coordinator of
Dayball,
this
right?
unit.
Where
Right.
the Chargers were like locked in on getting Brian Dayball after 2020, and then they kept going into the playoffs, and the Chargers got impatient. They're like, all right, let's just hire Brandon Staley instead, and like,
And it worked out, maybe.
Maybe not.
Argo has a good point here. Oh, and then RJ, I'm going to
Lovie
get to your
Smith
point in a second
on
because I was
head
thinking that.
coaching job number 3.
Well, so Argo writes, I mean, Lovie Smith got back in there. Why can't Leslie? I think that the Houston Texans are the Christian Kirk contract of organizations. And you just kind of have to ignore it, right? Where it's like, you can't take
But the
this
NFL didn't ignore the Christian Kirk contract. That's the problem. That's the thing.
I remember seeing a tweet where it was just like GMs are just kind of pretending this doesn't exist because it's a crazy contract. But just
anyways, here's a $20 million a year contract, Mike Williams.
Oof. But I don't think you can really look at at least because they fired Jack Easterby today. But I don't think you could look at what the Houston Texans have done in recent years and kind of say well, if the Texans did it, why couldn't these other teams do it? And it's because the Texans are an outlier, an extreme outlier. Is the Josh McCown dream dead now?
No.
Okay.
No.
And RJ writes, again, I was thinking this earlier. I was going to make this point, but I forgot. So thank you, RJ. Brian Daboll's success may actually help Frazier. I agree. I think, again, if the Bills get a very good playoff run here, and then or maybe even Super Bowl, and then teams see what Brian Daboll, who was under Sean McDermott for a number of years, they're seeing what he's done with this New York team. Again, even if this team loses out, they still have 5 wins. It's still better than a lot of people thought the Giants were going to be. And I don't think they're going to finish with 5 wins. They'll finish with at least a few more. But again, teams are going to see what a Brian Daboll coaching tree person does, so to speak, plus Frazier coming off of presumably what will be a very good year from the Bills. Yeah, that does help. Okay. Not so. This is talking about Carolina. Ralph Wilson Sr. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service, Ralph. Right. Not so hilarious if they want Bean as president. I think Bean would be president of the United States before the Pagulas would. The Pagulas are more apt to let him leave to be president of the United States than they would be to let him leave to be president of another football team. So, moving on. Right? Is that all the Leslie Frazier talk?
I guess.
Okay. My second takeaway, we're moving to the offensive side of the football here for the Buffalo Bills. The running game, David, for the first time this season, in a game in which Josh Allen played all 4 quarters and played the entire game, he did not finish as the Buffalo Bills' leading rusher. It's insane. It took 6 weeks to get to this point for a running back to finish as the team's leading rusher in real games, I guess, or in real outings from the quarterback. But they did just that yesterday. Devin Singletary having 17 rushes for 85 yards, also had 4 receptions for 22 yards, averaged 5 yards per carry and even 5 yards per carry. And perhaps the most reassuring, I guess, or the statistic that is the largest source of optimism moving forward for me is that Singletary, his longest run of the day was 14 yards. So his totals of 85 yards and 5 yards per carry, they're not inflated by 1 yard or one run of 25 or 30, right? He was just consistently popping off these 4 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards, and then, just consistently picking up very good yardage and keeping this offense on schedule, specifically early in the game in the first half. Singletary really was their offense there for a little bit because the offense was struggling to get the passing game going. The passing game was struggling to find a rhythm. There was a streak there where Josh Allen missed 8 or 9 consecutive passes or something like that. He was just off there to begin. Obviously, he figured it out as the game went on. We'll get into that later. But in a game where the offense did struggle to get into motion to find rhythm through their bread and butter, which is the passing game. They were able yesterday to rely on Devin Singletary and rely on the ground game to keep the offense on schedule, to keep them moving, to keep moving the chains consistently. And again, they do that with Singletary. They largely do it, or at least partially, largely, whatever, with lead runs. As Eric noted yesterday, I think in the Twitter Spaces, and also he tweeted it out, the Chiefs were struggling with lead runs this year. Through the first 5 weeks of the season, they were surrendering 8.8 yards per attempt on lead runs, and the Bills kind of take advantage with that early, using lead blockers and using, getting Singletary in positions to succeed, and he largely did. Again, 5 yards per carry. And he really does keep that Bills offense moving until they are able to get the ball moving through the passing game. I don't know if this is something that we're going to be seeing consistently from the Bills offense. I don't know if this is just like a matchup, right? It was a combination of a good matchup and a good coaching performance from Ken Dorsey to kind of identify a weakness and put his players in position to succeed. But this is something that I wanted to see from the Bills, is the ability to, in a game where the bread and butter isn't working, can you establish or manufacture production on the ground so your offense can kind of stay in the game, so you can can stay alive until you are able to get it going. And at least yesterday, that's exactly what happened. So, David, the running game, is this something that we're consistently going to see moving forward, or is it just kind of a mismatch of circumstances?
I mean, we all saw last week when the Chiefs played the Raiders just how much the Raiders wanted to run the ball because the Chiefs just cannot defend the run. So you hoped coming into this game that they would at least try to run Singletary, and they did. They got a lot of success early on, and I kind of wish they had more of that in the second half, and they just didn't quite get there. It was fine because they found their rhythm offensively in the passing game, so it wasn't a big deal. But I'm encouraged by this. The play on the first drive, right, where they got into the red zone. Was it the first drive? Maybe it was one of the later drives, but they pulled out that reverse pin pull with Mitch Morse.
Oh yeah, that was nice.
He took the step one way and then reversed back to the other way, and they still had someone else pulling the other direction. Oh, that was cool. That was so freaking cool because I've never seen that before, and it was and that's exactly what you do with a player like Mitch Morse, who's super athletic and so good on those types of runs. It's such a shame that got called back, right, by some penalty or another.
Did it? I don't remember. I just remember just being like, that was a cool design. That was pretty cool.
It was very, very cool. But yeah, I mean, like, I wish that they had stuck with it a little more, but I can't complain too much because they felt good about the rhythm of the offense passing. So, again, how many times do you really want to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands? But, it's an encouraging sign. And I think, I'll be honest, part of why I think they were willing to lean into Singletary more was just because they deactivated Zach Moss. And instead of trying to figure out, like, okay, where do we put Zach Moss here? What's the situation here? Okay,
they got out of their own ways.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, like, that was sort of the thing. Like, you don't have to worry about when and where you need to bring Singletary out on just normal rundowns when you just have Zach Moss deactivated, and your options at that point are Singletary and Cook. And Cook had a couple of plays. He didn't play
2 carries, 8 yards.
Yeah. He was fine.
Fine.
It was very limited. He didn't,
right,
he didn't
wasn't
fumble.
Part of the game plan.
He wasn't, making some amazing play. He wasn't, doing anything bad or wrong, but he wasn't, making some game-changing, momentum shifting, et cetera, et cetera. But that's fine. Like, he's still a rookie, and he was always going to be a bit of a projection as a runner to begin with. So I'm not like super concerned about that. I'm encouraged by this run game, and I'm hoping the bye week will be a way for them to kind of figure out, like, okay, how do we really want this to work moving forward? And And maybe that does mean, as Argo puts, just leaving Moss on the sideline, and maybe they use him and dangle him out there as trade bait for someone
for
for
Christian
something else.
McCaffrey.
Oh, obviously. we're talking about how great Devin Singletary is. Let's bring Christian McCaffrey into the mix. But it's encouraging. I want them to continue to find this type of success, but be more consistent throughout the whole game with it. And maybe Devin Singletary actually has 100 yards once. That would be nice.
Cool.
Having a 100-yard rusher.
Hey, who knows? That's not Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen will get to 100 yards rushing in a game before Devin Singletary will. Is that a hot take?
Has Josh Allen run for 100? What's Josh Allen's highest?
Not recently, but he certainly has in the past. Like back when he couldn't throw for 300 yards and he was everyone said he was a bad quarterback and he could never do it. See, that was the thing. Like I remember, his rookie. I think his rookie year, he had like 3 games in a row. Or he had 2 games in a row where he ran for over 100 yards, and then he ran for 99 in a row in his third because he took a knee. But whatever. That's besides the point. But yeah, Devin Singletary is certainly their best running back, but that's not necessarily to say that I'm not going to say that, but like Singletary, he's good, right? He is certainly a usable running back in a pass first offense, right? He was kept that offense on schedule yesterday, kept the chains moving. And I do want to say something, which I know, right? 46 minutes into the podcast, and I'm finally going to say something, but no. I think it's funny that you listen to these, these media people, these talking heads on your nationally syndicated television shows or nationally televised television shows. That makes sense. But people talk about the Bills using Josh Allen right on design runs. They're like, oh, they're gonna get him in trouble. They're gonna they have to stop running him. And it's like, I don't think Ken Dorsey's calling that many design runs. No,
he's not.
There was one yesterday where they tried to call a QB draw, and I think Singletary missed the gap, and Allen didn't really get anything on it. But my microphone just broke.
Again.
Awesome. We're moving. But no, if you just notice, they are not really using Allen, at least initially, on many short yardage situations. There were 2 calls yesterday where it was second and short and then third and short, and they tried to get Singletary to pick up the whatever and one, and they couldn't, and then they used Davis to kind of come and push Allen. So they are only using Allen on those short yardage situations in extreme circumstances now, when they need it, right? They're not doing it on third down, right? They'll try to pick it up in other ways, and then if that doesn't work, then they'll actually use Allen because they know it works. But David, I'm going to throw it to you for your second takeaway here, I believe, while I try to fix this microphone.
All right. So my second takeaway is sort of twofold, right? The real takeaway that I've written here is that the Bills need to be the 1 seed this year. And I say that because yesterday's game could have gone either way. And the Bills have played a lot of games in recent years in Kansas City, and they've found success there in the regular season, not so much in the postseason. And the Chiefs recently have not played in Buffalo outside of the 2020 year, where that was that game that got delayed because of COVID. It was played on Monday at 6:00 or whatever it was, and it was rainy and it was just weird, and the Bills were trying to do that too high safety look to try and prevent big plays, which they did, but they also gave up 250 yards rushing because the defensive line just couldn't keep up with what was actually happening in the run game. That was Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's only good game as a professional football player. And they've been chasing that high ever since. But the Chiefs have never had to play in Buffalo against that crowd in a high pressure situation. And while they are certainly more than capable, because he's Patrick Mahomes and he's kind of just capable of doing whatever the hell he wants, they're certainly capable of beating the Bills in Buffalo. We know that. But it is so much harder to do that than being at home in Kansas City in what is an equally hostile and loud environment, right? Like, we all saw that yesterday, just how hyped up and ready that crowd was for that game. And rightfully so. They should be. The Kansas City has a great fan base and they're very loud. They're notorious for being extremely loud in a very old stadium, right? I mean, it's a tough place to play. But this is why you need to be the 1 seed. Everything has to roll through you. You need every advantage you can get against a team like the Chiefs. And there's no guarantee that the Chiefs will have the types of injuries that they had yesterday, where they had to play a bunch of nobodies at corner. And obviously the Bills have their own injuries. We're very familiar with all that. But, having Trent McDuffie yesterday for them probably would be pretty good for them. Having a couple other starting corners would also be pretty good for them. Whereas now, like, you need to be able to come into Buffalo and beat the Bills. And that's a difficult thing to do. And the Bills need to be able to do that in the playoffs. And before we have a great super chat from Jordan Poyer's driver.
Thank you, Jordan Poyer's driver.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for taking care of our all-pro safety and also giving us the super chat. Very much appreciate it. I like Bills road games. I do too, because they are
driving
good
to them
at winning, clearly.
Right. If the Bills aren't on the road, he can't drive Jordan Poyer places.
But also, I enjoy Bills home games, especially in the playoffs, because, that's a nice advantage to have, isn't it? Like,
not bad.
You need to be able to.
I'm not against it.
Yeah. Like, this is just, I'm tired of having to go into Kansas City to steal one from the Chiefs. I would rather have Kansas City come into Buffalo, deal with that crowd noise, deal with that type of environment in the cold, in the potentially strange weather conditions that January and February in Buffalo brings.
Yeah.
Rather than having to go to KC ... again.
But it's funny, we talk about this and we talk about how great of an AFC championship this theoretically is going to be in Buffalo. But you just know it's going to be 65-mile-per-hour gusts and neither team's going to throw the ball. And it's just going to be well, awesome. I'm glad we did this.
Then hopefully by then the Devin Singletary show is really on.
You mean Christian McCaffrey?
Hey, either one.
But
and that's the other thing, right? It's the Chiefs can't run the ball either. Mm-hmm. They really can't. Because and especially against the Bills, the Chiefs have a very good offensive line. And in particular, that interior with Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and Joe Thuney. They spent a lot of money on Joe Thuney. They spent a second-round pick on Creed Humphrey, who shouldn't have been available in the second round. And then Trey Smith, they were lucky to get in the sixth round because of injury concerns. He's a great run blocker. Orlando Brown has made his making as an offensive tackle in run blocking. That's why the Ravens drafted him initially, because it's just this mammoth human being that could just annihilate people in the run game. And then, Andrew Wiley's out there holding his breath and trying not to pee his pants against Von Miller and failing, by the way.
He did pee his pants, sadly.
But even with that great interior offensive line, they couldn't run the ball against the Bills. Because Daquan Jones is making a difference for this team, because Ed Oliver is a good defensive tackle, because Von Miller on the 10 run stats that he had was still making 4 stops. And you have a rotation with AJ Epinesa and Shaq Lawson who know how to play the run. And by the way, Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds are playing out of their minds this year.
They are. We'll get into Matt Milano here momentarily, but and people are talking in chat about Isaiah McKenzie soon.
Oh yeah. So, to me, this is what I'm talking about. Make the Chiefs come into Buffalo, force them to be one-dimensional in a road game, and make them earn every single freaking inch of that game. Just do it. Get that 1 seed and force them to play in an unusual environment. Because every AFC championship game, let's see, 2018, that was in Kansas City. 2019, that was also in Kansas City, right?
I think so. See, I don't know. If you asked me to think further
Yes,
back
because
than
that
a
no
week
no
ago, I don't.
2019. What was 2019? I don't even remember. What was 2019? 2019.
2019, the Super Bowl was
That
no,
was
it
the
was
Chiefs and the Niners.
was it?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, it
Yeah.
was.
So then it was in Kansas City, right? Yeah.
I know what
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. 2020, we know was in Kansas City because that's right. 2019 was the Titans and the Chiefs in Kansas City. Right. 2020,
True.
we know was in Kansas City because the Bills lost in Kansas City. 2021 was the Bengals in Kansas City. The last 4 AFC championships have been in Kansas City. They're used to it at this point. Get them to do something different.
Yeah.
Force them to be different. The Bills
No, I
need the
agree.
1 seed. Get the 1 seed.
Right. And like as you said, David, like even if it is in Buffalo, right, that's not to say that the Chiefs won't win, but like
Mhm.
make them uncomfortable. And as we've said, and as people have noted on Twitter, the quote unquote difficult part of the Bills' schedule, at least on paper, is over. Right. You look at the rest
Yeah.
of their schedule, they have the Lions, not a bad team. They have the Packers, who that team isn't looking great.
Not great.
Not a great team this year. The Vikings look okay, right? Maybe that 5-1
Right.
record's a little bit deceiving, but that's not to say that they're a bad team, certainly. Who else do they have? They have the Dolphins again, Patriots twice. Patriots don't look bad, but again, we're talking about the Buffalo Bills here. Jets don't look bad, but again, we're talking about the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
Like they have, it's not an easy schedule, certainly, but I think it would be fair to say that again, on paper, most challenging games
Right.
of their schedule are behind them. So, again, the Bills are in position as of now. They are first seed in the AFC. Like, if the season ended today, again, 6 weeks into the season, it's stupid to say this, but if the season ended today, they'd have the first round bye. And you look at the rest of the schedule, and it's favorable, right? It looks like the Bills, if they just take care of business, if they do what they're supposed to do, looks like, again, if the AFC could go through Buffalo. So,
yeah.
Moving on here to what went right and what went wrong. This is the segment where we look back on the Bills game and we talk about what went right and what went wrong. So for me, what went right in this game is linebacker Matt Milano. Generally, a good game for Matt Milano, I would say. Kind of looked a little rocky, I would say, early. He had like a weird play early where he was in coverage. I don't even remember who he was on. It was zone coverage, I think. I don't even think he was necessarily on the guy. I think the play just kind of came to him, and he didn't even attempt to make the tackle, which it was an open field tackle. It would have been a difficult tackle to make, but he just kind of stood there. It was very non-Matt Milano-like, if you will. And just, a couple of weird plays early. He got taken off the field on a couple of 3rd and longs, and everyone was just like, what's going on? What's going on here? And then the game progresses and Matt Milano continues to make impacts. Again, as we said earlier, became a key part of the defensive game plan there as the game progressed, spying Patrick Mahomes. The Bills kind of switched to rushing 3 and then dropping 8 into coverage using Milano as a spy. It was a game plan that worked, right? You limit Patrick Mahomes and company to 20 points. And it's, as we said, it's a game plan that has historically worked and worked again yesterday. Again, had 4 pressures in the game, including the one on the game-clinching interception. As we said earlier, he and Von Miller combining for that late pressure that forces Mahomes to make an off-platform throw into the hands of Taron Johnson. And like I said, just a few weird plays from him and a few weird coaching decisions, but he was largely very good. Had 3 run stops, just a few strong open field tackles, which early he was kind of not attempting to make those, but as the game progresses, he does make those open field tackles, and he just continues to be a very, very good player, just playing out of his mind throughout the first 6 weeks of the season here. People are talking about at an all-pro level. Jordan writes, love Matt Milano, counted 3 missed tackles for him. And that is what's contributing to his very bad PFF grade. And also they attributed 6 receptions to him in coverage, I believe. Which
listen, if there's 2 things you definitely don't buy into, and this is a PSA about PFF, don't pay attention to any sort of like offensive line grading for them because it's BS, and every offensive lineman in the history of football will tell you that. And definitely don't listen to their coverage grades, because they don't know what they're talking about. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Their form of grading coverage to individual players is genuinely absurd, and that's all I gotta say about that.
Milano was very good yesterday. And again, we can contribute, I guess people are trying to contribute his strong play and the strong play of Edmonds to the increased production and the increased general and consistent presence of the defensive line, right? The Bills are getting pressure this year, or at least the Bills are, the Bills defensive line is playing better than it has in the past.
We feel like they're getting pressure, therefore they are getting pressure.
Exactly, right? We don't have to look at the numbers to feel like they are. My emotions tell me they are, so they are. Like Milano and Edmonds are, I guess, noticeably very good this year. But Milano, I guess, has been noticeably very good. And it's funny because every broadcast now, every time Matt Milano makes a play, every broadcaster is like, he's one of the most underrated linebackers in the league. It's like, at what point is he not underrated? Yeah. Like, I agree. I agree that I think he is nationally underrated. I think he's a very good linebacker who deserves more, more coverage and more love. Yeah. People should give him his flowers more often. But this is an every week thing where people are like, oh, he deserves more recognition. And it's like, I think you're giving him his recognition, but it's deserved. He is a very good linebacker. Shows up again yesterday. Again, 3 run stops, 4 pressures. Generally a good game. So, David, what went right for you?
I'll tell you what went right for me, and that is one Joshua Patrick Allen.
He was really good. I forgot about him.
How many quarterbacks have the correct instinct to hurdle? Like none, right? Like
I can think of one, and it's Josh
There's
Allen.
One, and it's Josh. What kind of quarterback has an instinct to hurdle and does it right? Like, as a rookie, he made the best play, or one of the best plays he made. The sort of wild moment of his rookie season was him hurdling Anthony Barr on 3rd and 11.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back then that should have been the moment where we're like, oh, of course this dude's got to be, amazing.
A guy, yeah.
Right. But then, he does it last year against the Chiefs in a sort of similar situation on a 3rd down where he leaps over L'Jarius Sneed. And then in this game, 1st and 10, first of all, David Questenberry on that play as the pulling tackle, lead blocking, didn't really block anyone on that play, but I will say that dude was moving. That dude was absolutely moving. Kind of wish he blocked someone on the play, but whatever. We'll work on that. But Josh Allen just went straight over Justin Reed, who they paid a decent amount of money to as to help be one of the guys to help reconstruct this defense. And Justin Reed's a very good player. And he just no, I'm going over you. Because Justin Reed was anticipating probably Allen to lower his shoulder, and he probably would have taken it and done something with that, but I don't think he was ever anticipating Josh Allen hurdling him and then picking up another 5-10 yards after that. Just insane.
Yeah, very productive hurdle.
And then 2 plays later, throwing a dart.
Beautiful.
Over the top of the second level of the defense, right into the corner, again, against Justin Reed, to Dawson Knox. That's a bonkers throw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. So between that drive, plus the fact that, him and Stephon Diggs still have a great connection. Stephon Diggs, I believe, still leads the NFL in receiving. Am I correct in that?
I'm not sure because I know
49 catches for 656 yards and 6 touchdowns.
That's really good. I know Tyreek Hill's been insane too. Tyreek might be above him, but it's close.
Not with Skylar Thompson throwing to him.
Well, I read.
I'm wrong. No, I am wrong. My apologies. My apologies. 50 catches for 701 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Tyreek's been crazy.
Good for him.
But like, yeah, you look at Allen yesterday, 27 completions on 40 attempts, 329 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Getting the stats up on the other screen here, that's the smartest thing I've ever done on this podcast. Maybe I should have done it a year ago, right? I've always had access to the other screen. I've just never used it. Wow. I'm finally putting that big brain to use.
There you go.
But yeah, I don't even know what else to say. We've reached the point where every week Josh Allen is making numerous plays that we think are going to go down in NFL history, and then we forget about them because he does it again 5 minutes later. And just I don't even, there's nothing else to say. He's a baller. He's a dog. He's a game changer, a game wrecker. You can't really game plan for him because if you do try to game plan for his arm, he'll beat you with his legs and vice versa.
Yep.
Jordan Poyer's driver. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Reed got leaped and then smoked for 6. He failed the Chiefs. I gave him a free trip home. It's nice. Yep. That's very. I'm sure you.
Good for you, man. Good for you, man.
Thank you. But yeah, it is. It's almost easy to take him for granted, if you will, Josh Allen and Jordan Poyer's driver. It's easy to take him for granted. But no, with Josh Allen, because I just remember as a kid, I would just have to convince myself that the Bills quarterback that they have currently is good. Like Trent Edwards, yeah, he's good. Ryan Fitzpatrick, yeah, he's good. Thaddeus Lewis, yeah, he's good. He'll be good. He's the guy. But just now we actually have a guy where I don't ever think the Bills are going to lose the game. If Josh Allen, I am not shocked anymore when Josh Allen does crazy things and the Bills win the game. It's the expectation where it's just when Josh Allen got the ball yesterday with however many minutes left and he had to drive and score a touchdown. I was like, okay, he'll do it. He's just going to do it.
It's more like being vindicated at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that you have this guy and expecting to win every game. And then when he does, it's that's right, because that's what he does.
Yeah, because he's just not going to lose. And it's I have never watched a football player like that personally. Again, I'm 25 years old and I live in Buffalo. And so that I've been getting my NFL, I guess, experience. I'm obviously aware, but I'm not watching every single NFL game every week. So, historically, I just haven't really been able to watch these elite quarterbacks consistently, I guess. So I haven't ever watched a quarterback consistently where like you said, the expectation is win the game. The expectation is Josh Allen's my quarterback's gonna take over the game. I don't care how he gets the ball. I don't care how many points he's down in the fourth quarter. If he gets the ball, he's not losing. He's taking over the game. He's gonna run over you, run through you, pass the ball over you. It doesn't matter. He's gonna figure it out, and he just wants it more. And like I said, it's easy to take him for granted just because it's working, I guess. It's to the point where he's just gonna do it. I can't even put into words what it feels like to have a guy like Josh Allen. And again, the guy on the other sideline yesterday is just as good. And that's the thing is people talked all week about, this is the new Brady Manning, right? Allen Mahomes, this is the new marquee matchup that they want to put, on the posters. And this is, the matchup that they sell. This is the NFL's favorite matchup, if you will. And it's look, I think objectively, if you ask me to sit down and watch however many hours of film on both quarterbacks and chart every single throw they've ever made since Pop Warner, I could probably at the end of that, however many minutes, tell you, or hours, days, I would probably come to the conclusion that Patrick Mahomes is the better quarterback, right? Probably objectively. But who is more fun to watch? Allen. Allen, I think 10 times out of 10, right? That is the quarterback that I prefer to watch. He's just more exciting. Dare I say more talented than Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes ain't hurdling anyone.
Exactly. Josh Allen is just a creature. To quote Von Miller and to quote everyone on Twitter, Josh Allen is just an alien. There's nothing else to say about the guy.
Nothing to say.
All right, David, for you, No, that is what went right. Are we moving on to Isaiah McKenzie?
You go for it, man.
The people were talking.
Very rightfully so talking.
Kyle says the guy on the other side is just as good. No rides for you. Oh, no. But yeah, the comments are gone. But there was good discourse about Isaiah McKenzie. Not a great game from Isaiah McKenzie, I guess. 2 receptions on 5 targets. We talked about the advanced stats from PFF, or at least the statistics that you can't really find elsewhere. PFF said that Isaiah McKenzie had no drops yesterday. I think I can think of at least one. But
yeah, one kind of important one.
Right. No, but regardless, he had a few back-breaking mistakes, I would say. He had that miscommunication with Josh Allen there on the opening drive, where I guess Allen just kind of not audible, improvised is the better word. And he tried to pitch it to McKenzie. McKenzie wasn't paying attention, didn't know the ball was coming to him, and naturally that's what's going to happen. McKenzie can't get a handle on it. Ball falls to the turf. Chiefs pick it up. And then in the second quarter, he was wide open in the end zone on a 4th down, tripped over his own feet, can't catch the ball as it's thrown to him, and the Bills turned the ball over on downs. And then to start out the last drive of the first half, Allen targets a wide open Isaiah McKenzie, and PFF didn't call it a drop, so we'll just say he didn't catch it. But Isaiah McKenzie did not catch the ball when he was wide open, and of course, like that, obviously, it didn't, I guess, halt the Bills' drive, because they go 98 yards in 1 minute and 13 seconds, and Gabriel Davis scores, as he tends to, he does that in Arrowhead. But yeah, just not a great game from Isaiah McKenzie. Like I said, 3 mistakes there that some do cost the Bills points, and then others, just kind of not great, not reassuring.
Right.
And people are talking about Isaiah McKenzie, or they were talking about Isaiah McKenzie in the chat. And like, I don't think that this is the end of Isaiah McKenzie. Obviously, I don't think it's the end of Isaiah McKenzie. He was very obviously in his own head yesterday. A lot of his mistakes were mental errors that I think, had he been able to come up with it, had he not miscommunicated with Josh and had he been able to get even a handle or recover his fumble early, he probably doesn't make the 2 later mistakes. But again, I think Isaiah McKenzie will recover from this. But what is so difficult and I guess troublesome about a performance like this from Isaiah McKenzie, again, 2 receptions on 5 targets and 3 not great mistakes, 3 very obvious mistakes there from him. What makes it so troublesome is when you have a guy like Khalil Shakir, who is consistently making an impact as a wide receiver when his number is called upon. You see what he did last week when Crowder and McKenzie are out, has numerous big plays against the Steelers. And then this week has 1 reception on that drive, that 1 minute and 13 second, 98-yard drive there to not end the first half. But again, for 14 yards, he keeps the chains moving there on that drive. And then that sets up the Gabriel Davis touchdown. So, again, I don't think this is the end for McKenzie. I think he will continue to have a role in this offense moving forward, but I am ready to see at least a more significant snap share between McKenzie and Shakir. I want Shakir on the field more. Again, and like I said, this isn't to say I dislike McKenzie. I think he's still a usable player who has a role in this offense, but Shakir needs to have a bigger role in the slot.
I agree. I think that McKenzie, he's proven that he can do some stuff last year and this year. I think that Shakir can also clearly do quite a bit as well, and possibly more than what McKenzie can do. I would rather see McKenzie get, or rather, I'd rather see Shakir get the lion's share of snaps in the slot rather than McKenzie at this point.
Though I do, we have been nothing but praise. We've given nothing but praise to Khalil Shakir on this podcast for years.
I know.
Or for years. And by that I mean months. Feels like
many years.
But I do have my first bit of Khalil Shakir slander, David. I have my first bit. Are you ready
the
for
punt
this?
return?
I don't love him as a punt returner,
Yeah.
at least thus far.
Yeah.
It's happened a couple of times this year, and it happened twice yesterday. He gets the ball and he runs backwards. And it's like,
and more than that, like, it seems like he doesn't quite know how to judge the ball and what to do.
Perhaps, yeah.
When the ball is in the air coming towards him, whether it's to let it go, fair catch it, try to return it, it's not great. It's not great.
Yeah, and like regarding running backwards, like it's not a great strategy, but it's one that if you are a dynamic athlete with elite speed, you can kind of make up for it, right? You can just kind of run to the other side of the field and outrun everyone. Shakir, he's a plus athlete. He has good speed, but he's not dynamic in any, not dynamic in anything when it comes to athleticism, I would say. So, we were calling for him to be the returner here moving forward. Maybe not. But again, give Shakir those slot snaps and maybe we've been trying to replace McKenzie as the returner for how long? And now I'm like, actually, maybe McKenzie should be the returner. What's Marquez Stevenson doing? Is he still hurt? Is he still hurt out here?
I forget Marquez Stevenson exists, honestly.
Les Brown, right?
Let that be Sports Rocks guy. I'm not addressing Marquez Stevenson as a person.
Les Brown writes, Shakir has earned more playing time and Lil Dirty has earned less. I think that's the real takeaway here, right? Where it's like, look, if McKenzie was making these mistakes, and as people have noted in the chat, it's not like this is the first game in which Isaiah McKenzie has ever made mistakes, right? He has a laundry list of games here where he's made a handful of mistakes in each. But like, it wouldn't be that problematic, right? We'd be like, okay, we'll move on. He'll figure it out. If you didn't have this burgeoning 5th round pick who's making an impact every time he's getting called upon, right? That's what makes it so interesting is the dichotomy here, I guess. You have one guy trending downwards, one guy trending upwards. At what point do they meet? At what point does the usurping one or the ascending one overtake the descending one? Maybe after the bye. David, for you, what went wrong?
What went wrong? I'm gonna keep it short because I don't like.
I'm sorry. I have to make. I'm sorry. Spin writes, Shakir has made mistakes as well in multiple games. Okay, yes, but also it's important to note that he is a 5th round pick playing limited snaps, right? Like you can kind of give, and he's 6 games into his career here, and he's played significant snaps in 1 game. Like you can kind of give him a bit more of a pass in terms of making mental mistakes or just blocking mistakes or mistakes in general, given that he was a 5th round draft pick and he's a rookie. Isaiah McKenzie's been in the league for how many years at this point, and he is consistently making mistakes. Again, I like him, but just at one point, you need to give Shakir a chance here. And as Heather writes, Shakir hasn't made like a huge mistake yet. Like Shakir, again, has made a few mistakes here and there. Have any of his mistakes been as big as any of the 3 McKenzie made yesterday?
Not in my opinion. Anyway, moving on. What went wrong for me? Again, I'm going to keep this short because I don't like complaining about refereeing because refereeing is kind of just bad in general. And it's not a reason 99.9% of times you lose a game because not every game comes down to a Fail Mary type of play, But good Lord, Brad Allen's crew was atrocious yesterday. And in a very unique way because all of the ticky-tack stuff was getting called, right? Like a little tug here and there. Oh, we're flagging that as pass interference. A slight push off that is pretty typical of any receiver or tight end running like an in-breaking route. Oh, yeah, we're definitely calling that on Travis Kelce. Why, though? Like, why is that getting called? Meanwhile, Chris Jones soccer tackles Josh Allen, and they're like, nah.
Be a red card.
Man. Nothing happened, man. Absolutely nothing. Nothing happened. What are you talking? And then, like, a couple plays later, on a different drive or whatever, Deion Dawkins absolutely yanks the back of, I think it was Frank Clark's jersey on a hold, and they're like, nope, nothing happened. Nothing happened. I don't know what you're talking about. Absolutely nothing happened. The most obvious penalties, they just said, nope, nothing happened. Didn't even try to discuss, didn't want to acknowledge anything. All the ticky-tack stuff, they're like, how dare you even imagine that this is not a penalty? It was so weird and so inconsistent. And that's what's maddening about the whole thing with refereeing, right? Is it's just so inconsistent from game to game and crew to crew. It's like, how does anyone play football anymore? It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on.
Right. No, and this officiating crew was bad in maybe the worst way, right? Where it's just like all you want is consistency, right? Like you just want, like, okay, if you're gonna call the bullshit, or if you're gonna call the ticky-tacky stupid shit, then don't miss the obvious, trips right in front of the referee. Like, just be consistent. Call everything or call nothing. Don't pick and choose what to call. Whatever. Okay, David. I'm calling an audible here on the outline. I'm skipping past Oopsie of the Week because Monday Night Football is about to start. So we are going to move in to everybody's favorite segment. It is True or Rubbish.
Let's see if it's true or rubbish. Let's go.
Let's go. This is the segment where I give David a number of statements each week, and then he tells me whether the statements are true or rubbish. So, David, are you ready to begin here?
I'm always ready.
True or rubbish? Entering his bye week, Josh Allen is the bona fide MVP favorite.
True.
This was true.
It was true all along.
Can't believe it. It was true.
Why do you feel this way?
Because who else is?
That's true.
Well,
yeah.
Is anyone else playing to those two guys' level? Herbert isn't so far, unless he has a dominant performance against a good Broncos defense right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Kyler's not doing anything. Lamar
and Call of Duty's coming out, so
the Ravens once again blew another lead to a very inferior New York Giants team. I don't know. Jalen Hurts, I guess, but I mean, he's not playing at Josh Allen's level or Patrick Mahomes' level. He's just not. And Jalen Hurts is having a very good season this year, but he's not playing at that level, in my opinion.
Argo writes, that's a gimme. There's a running theme in this week's True or Rubbish. Until we get to the end when it gets it gets kind of out there. All right. David, true or rubbish? Bills will see the Chiefs again this year.
Yes.
This was true all after all. Can't believe it.
But what if
it
I
was
disagree?
True.
Then, you know what? It'll be one of the biggest upsets ever in playoff history.
Jets.
Because, listen, I'm all for it. I'd love to see the Jets in the AFC Championship. That would be hilarious and such an easy game. That's like a 55-10 type of game.
If we see the Jets in the AFC Championship, some crazy things have transpired, and I don't
bizarre.
Right, we live in bizarro land. Spin writes, true or rubbish? Kyle, rubbish. Puka writes, Hurts on a rookie contract with a stacked team. Very true. Though that's kind of the roster building strategy right now, right? Getting a good young quarterback. Yeah, it's tried and true. It works. I need to pull up the rest here. All right. True or rubbish? The Bills linebacker group is the best in the NFL.
True.
This was true all after all. Can't believe it. It was true.
Again, I don't know who else is really competing with that particular position. I don't know. Maybe I'm just totally overlooking someone, and I'm sure the chat will tell me all about it in the meanest way possible. I mean, Edmonds and Milano are both just playing out of their minds right now. It's kind of hard to beat two guys who are playing at such a high level at this point. So I'm going to say true.
And RJ makes a point here.
Yeah,
it definitely helps when your base is two linebackers and they are both great. See, that's what's interesting is like I wrote linebacker duo earlier and I was like, well, that's not a thing that all teams have. Like most teams don't have linebacker duos, right? It's 3 or it depends on how many linebackers you play with. Very few teams play with 2 in their base set. So it's difficult to stay, that, the Bills have these 2 linebackers. They're both very good and they're the best linebackers. And it's like, well, if you're limiting, I guess, your margin for error, then yeah. But it's a flawed question, David. I set you up for failure there.
I'm okay with that.
That's what this podcast is, though. It's just Kyle setting you up for failure each and every time. Here's a good one, David. The NFL trade deadline is in a couple of weeks here. It's after week 8. The Buffalo Bills play 1 regular season game between now and the trade deadline. It is I believe it's a Sunday night game against the Green Bay Packers. It's their next game. And then the trade deadline is a couple of weeks later, or a couple of days later, rather. So, David, true or rubbish? The next time the Bills take the field, it will be with Christian McCaffrey on their roster.
Rubbish.
That is rubbish all after all. It was all rubbish.
Because the Panthers publicly are saying they want multiple first-round picks for him, and screw that noise. Who's giving up multiple first-round picks? Is. Come on. I don't care if they're using that as like, we can negotiate down. I'm sorry. Your idea of negotiating down probably still includes a first-round pick, and I'm not about that.
Zach Moss in a second, and I do it any day of the week. No, I don't know if I do that, actually. Now that I think about it for half a second, I don't know if I do that. But, and like, rubbish, the people don't like it. The people don't like the Christian McCaffrey idea. Look, it makes a lot of sense, though, contractually. You can make it add up. And again, you're requiring Christian McCaffrey knowing full well he's likely a rental, right? Because he's not restructuring down to where the Bills would need him to restructure down to. So you're getting him for the rest of this season. It would need to depend on what the Bills, or what the Panthers are able or are willing to negotiate down to. But I still don't hate the idea of getting Christian McCaffrey.
I don't hate the idea. I just don't want to spend that type of asset on it.
Here's a fun one, David. And again, you're going to say rubbish probably, and I think you're wrong.
Okay.
True or rubbish? A Sean McDermott, Brian Dable Super Bowl is possible.
Absolutely rubbish.
That is rubbish all after all. It was all
How could you say
rubbish.
I don't fully understand how the Giants are winning as many games as they are, other than Brian Dable is exactly the genius that I've been telling people he is. But even then, like, wow. This Giants roster is not good, and they will come crashing. They will come crashing back down to earth at some point. I don't know when it's going to be, but they're not even remotely close to a Super Bowl team. They're not. In a weak NFC, they might be the 7th seed, but that's it.
Well, let's kind of rephrase it to that. Do you think they will sneak into the playoffs?
Potentially.
Yes or no? True or rubbish? Your Giants make the playoffs.
Rubbish. Only because in that division, they have the Eagles and the Cowboys ahead of them.
They do. Yes, that is true. And with Dak coming back, obviously, and Cooper Rush. I mean, I love the takes that some people are like, actually, like, oh yeah, Cooper, that's a quarterback competition. It's
actually,
like, what?
Actually, you should totally sit Dak Prescott because QB wins matter.
It's like, look at every statistic, look at any number, and it's very
look with your eyeballs and watch Cooper Rush play.
Either works. Everything suggests that Dak's the guy. There is no controversy, but regardless, but yes, no, the Giants certainly don't have the roster. The Giants certainly aren't good enough to go to the. They might sneak into the playoffs, maybe just given what they've done already, and they certainly aren't good enough to go to the Super Bowl. But I cannot sit here and tell you that they're not going to, just because nobody expected them to do this. Nobody expected them to get to 5-1. I am not willing to go on record and say that they are not the team from destiny and they're not going to go 7 or 16-1. I cannot confidently say that, David.
That's fair. You can do whatever you want. That's fine.
Argo writes, Daniel Jones has 2 passing touchdowns in the last 4 games. The dude is not making the Super Bowl. Look, I'm not saying anyone's wrong. I agree. The Giants are not a good team. The Giants objectively maybe are a bad team, but they're also 5-1 and they're winning games, ugly games that they shouldn't win, right? They just beat the Ravens and they beat the bad Packers, but like it's not. They're making me have a stroke, David. That's what the Giants are doing.
Well, then
me.
we should wrap this up.
Spin writes, who makes it farther, Giants or Jets? Jets aren't bad. Jets aren't bad.
You just like Breece Hall too much.
Maybe. I like Garrett Wilson a lot too. I don't dislike the Jets at all, man. Sauce Gardner.
Hey, I've been on the Jets since the offseason.
Oh, you have? I was going to say, yeah. When we did our AFC preview, or we did something a couple of months ago, and you were like, yeah, long term, maybe even short term, the Jets pose the biggest threat to the Bills in the AFC East, which perhaps they do. They've got quite the team over there. All right. I think that wraps it up. Thank you guys for watching what was a great episode of the Cover One Roundup. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel. A bunch of great content here most nights of the week. Of course, Roundup tonight, Air Raid Hour here in 30 minutes. Then tomorrow, you got Film Room going deep later in the week. You've got the Skies coverage. You got the Cover One Buffalo show. We got Chris producing some great fantasy football content, which actually maybe helped me this week. I watched his video. My team's probably going to lose because I'm averaging 100 points a game. I'm just getting incredibly lucky because my team is god-awful despite Jonathan Taylor being there and Justin Jefferson being there. I'm just not good at the thing. But my 100-point weeks are just so happen that they're coinciding with my opponent's worst weeks of the season as well. So I might rattle off another win here unless Jerry Jeudy goes off. But that's besides the point. So, yeah, just subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel and to all the podcast feeds. Rate and review if you feel so inclined. Make sure to check out One Pass. Again, become an insider. Great value there. Also, check out Underdog Fantasy. Again, promo code cover1 to have your initial deposit up to $100 matched. Make sure to follow Cover One on all social media at some variation of at Cover One. Make sure to follow David on Twitter at.
You can follow me at DFAUXY. That is at DFoxy. You can find some very fun takes, I guess, on there on the old tweet machine.
You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. Thank you all again for watching, and we will talk to you probably next week. All right. Bye-bye.